And if we shut off people in our lives that disagree with us on these things, we actually end up creating an echo chamber or a silo where we only surround ourselves with people who think similarly to us. And it's actually in the challenging of our opinions, challenging of our ideas, that we grow as Christians. Let's say a man has a job he's supposed to do, the husband. Let's say he's supposed to, I don't know, guide the children. Let's do something simple. The man is supposed to take the trash out, right? I think what granola crunch means is there are many women who, if a man doesn't do his job, they're just like, you know what, I'll do it then, right? And they'll make the sacrifice. And what ends up happening is the man falls into an easy state of, meh, the wife will take care of it. She's got it. She'll handle it. And so I don't think granola crunch meant, hey, this is a man's job, leave it to the men, women shouldn't be involved in it. I think what granola crunch meant instead, and this is how I interpreted it, but I don't know for sure this is what he meant, but this is how I interpreted it, is oftentimes men fail to do their job and women pick up the slack. And what that ends up doing is enabling the men in their shortcomings and failures. I think that's what granola crunch meant. And I think that's something we should be cognizant of, at least aware of. Not that women should just stay out of this, but if there's something the husband is supposed to be doing and he's dropping the ball, rather than the wife just picking up the slack, he kind of needs to be challenged in a way to step up his game. Does that make sense? That's how I understood it. And I think that's how granola meant it, but I don't know for sure. But I appreciate your clarification, because I can understand how that would be interpreted the way you put it. Jordan says, stepdads need to step up as well. If their stepsons/stepdaughters' biological fathers aren't acting as a father, stepfathers should step in and be their father. Just, you're granola, you're coming from a complementarian, a more complementarian perspective. And just notice that mom tasking is coming from a little bit more egalitarian perspective. Doesn't mean either of you guys are right or wrong. It means we can have a good discussion. So I'm actually going to draw a little chart on this with the canvas tool. So just, it's not that nobody's accepted or anything like that. It's just notice that you guys have a little different perspective on this is all. And feel free to correct me, either of you, if I'm caricaturing your position. Okay? So the difference between these points, and either of you can correct me if I'm wrong on this. The egalitarian side essentially says something along these lines, this is definitely a spectrum. Okay, recognize that. But the egalitarian position essentially says this: men and women are equally capable and called to a variety of roles, tasks, responsibilities, etc. Your gender does not delineate what you may or may not do. Okay? So that's this side. That's essentially egalitarianism on this far side. Okay? And complementarianism essentially says this. And this is what granola crunch was talking about. Men and women are equally valued and I'm just going to write it, ontologically co-equal, but when it comes to their respective roles in society, they have different roles and should stick to those roles as God given. So here's the complementarian perspective, roughly delineated, and here's the egalitarian perspective, roughly delineated, okay? And so what I want you guys to see is that, from my understanding, you've got the idea that granola, can't even spell, presented somewhere over here, maybe right here, and you have the idea that mom tasking promoted right over here. And so when granola says something like, men shouldn't be doing the work of, or women shouldn't be doing the work of men, okay? When granola says that, he means God has given each men and women different roles to fill, and he's coming at it from this perspective, but you can easily see how Mom Tasking, who is a little bit over on this side, would say, no, that doesn't sound right to me, because of this understanding. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense to everyone. And what I want to clarify here is that nobody is, I'm not trying to say anyone's right or wrong. Anyone needs to be quiet or anything like that, okay? These are different views of men and women's roles in society and in the church. Which statement would you say you resonate more with, or you feel like more represents your standards or your ideas? Which one of these two statements? Men and women are equally capable and called to a variety of roles, tasks, and responsibilities. Your gender does not delineate what you may or may not do. That's egalitarian-esque. And complementarian, men and women are equally valued and ontologically co-equal, but when it comes to the respective roles in society, they have different roles and should stick to those roles as God-given. Mom Tasking says, yes, I do, egalitarian. See, and that's what I'm thinking. So here's what's happening, guys, is Mom Tasking, you hear Granola make a statement like he did earlier, and he's just referring to this half. They have different roles, and they should stick to their roles as God-given. He's saying that, but because you believe this, Mom Tasking, your gender does not delineate what you may or may not do. Because you believe that, when he says a statement like that, it sounds sexist to you, right? And you're like, oh man, that's a pretty sexist statement, right? It's because you fundamentally believe this principle about how men and women relate to one another and how they relate to the world around them, okay? And again, I'm not saying you're wrong. This is kind of these sorts of ideas are kind of preconceived in our minds. They're based upon how we're raised and what we learn, all those sorts of things, okay? So that's why when he says a statement like that, you're like, that feels off to me, right? And when Granola says a statement like that, it's because he has this fundamental understanding that there are different roles and they should each work in different ways, okay? And again, here's what I want to clarify, okay? Here's what I want to clarify. This discussion right here, although important, I want to make clear this is an important discussion. This discussion is an intramural discussion that we're having as Christians, brothers and sisters. I want to very much clarify that, okay? This is a discussion we're having together. Oh, I could see how you see it that way. Oh, no, I see how you see it this way. You see what I mean? I especially want us to be able to see from other people's perspective or other people's point of view. I'm not trying to come down and say this one's right or this one's wrong. What I'm trying to do is help us to see how the other person could think this way. I actually, honestly, this is very, very important, and I'm so glad both of you were willing to voice your opinions and ideas in the chat. You know, we're talking about men and women's roles in society right here on this. But this same kind of structure happens when we're talking about race, when we're talking about politics. You'll have two Christians who disagree on the topic of politics, for example. And the one side just doesn't see how the other side could possibly be a Christian if they think the way they do. And then the other side doesn't see how that side could possibly be a Christian if they think the way they do. And it's coming down to this level of, you know, different preconceptions and ideas. And what I want to make clear is that we are Christians having a discussion about this, and it can be very helpful for us all to expand our minds and our understandings of how our fellow brothers and sisters could come to different conclusions on these. And that's okay. That's okay. But oftentimes, this is very important. Oftentimes this happens in political discussions, racial discussions, and we end up feeling very much like the other side is just, they're completely off in left field. How on earth could they end up in that position? You know, and it's one of those things where the discussions themselves are actually very, very healthy. For us to have those discussions, to have those conversations is extremely healthy. It really, really is. And if we shut off people in our lives that disagree with us on these things, we actually end up creating an echo chamber or a silo where we only surround ourselves with people who think similarly to us. And it's actually in the challenging of our opinions, challenging of our ideas, that we grow as Christians. And so this is really, really important. I'm glad we're having this discussion. It needs to stay cordial, of course, but this is very, very important for Christian growth, for discipleship, all of those things. Blueberry Beth says, I agree with both, ? And that's okay, Beth. And this is a spectrum. So this is a spectrum, Beth. And so Beth might be right around here, right? Beth might be right around here. And that's fine. And I'm not saying anywhere, I'm not, you know, sometimes when you draw a chart like this, there's a tendency to think the middle is the best way. I'm not saying that either, right? Beth might fall right around here. You know, some of us, you know, may fall somewhere over here. May fall here, right? And it's the discussions that are profitable and helpful. Going to the scriptures, talking about what the Bible says, all of those things. Blue of Green says, ontologically. All I mean is that in their essence, men and women are the same. So I say ontologically co-equal. A man and a woman are essentially the same in their essence. They have the same value. They're both made in the image of God, etc. But their roles might change. So that's what the word ontologically equal means. I know when I wrote that, I knew it was going to be complicated, but it was the best way I could think of describing it. Beth says, I would say in marriage and relationships, I agree with complementarian, but with like jobs, vocations, etc., I agree with egalitarian. And that's a very good way of putting it, Beth. I think that's actually helpful. So some people say that they have a different stance as it relates to church duties and tasks. So some people say they have a different stance. Here's church, but then you can draw the exact same graph with, say, secular business, and you might fall in a different area. And so some people say this applies this way in church, but it doesn't elsewhere. So very, very good clarification there, Beth. I appreciate that. Granola says, in all seriousness, we need to have these conversations. Many marriages suffer horribly because the husband and wife do not agree on issues like this before they get married. I agree, Granola, which is part of why I wanted to discuss it here. I've stopped and taken a lot of time to discuss it, and I've done that on purpose because this is an important topic, okay? Yeah, Mom Tasking says, I agree. See, very, very good. And see that, that's so encouraging, guys. We're coming together on some issues and some, you know, discussion that I think is very, very helpful. Jordan says, I think that men are better at some roles than women and vice versa, but men and women are not stuck to one role. I like that idea, Jordan. And that's very thoughtful. That's a very thoughtful way to put it. That men and women may have different strengths and weaknesses, but they're not confined necessarily. Blue of Green says, same in personhood, but different in, yeah, I don't know how you say it, but they are different. Different in roles? I don't know. Yeah, it's a good way of putting it, Blue of Green. Exactly. We're same in terms of our level of intrinsic value, but there is a difference in terms of role, what we're supposed to be doing, right? Hey guys, Pastor Channer here, and I don't know about you, but I feel like the like and subscribe buttons might be calling your name. In all seriousness, though, we would love if you head down to the description and catch us on the link over to Twitch or over to Discord. It's there that we can interact with people live, even when we're not putting out videos, and we would love for you to come join the conversation. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video, and take care. God bless, and bye now.